Well, the one thing that I get looks at for some of the tools that I use when I'm doing mechanics work and carpentry work, because being trained in both millwright mechanics and carpentry, and like woodworking and general carpentry, I've got a wide plethora of tools and a very good selection. So sometimes I'll get into a situation that I'm wondering what I'm going to do, and I take a look at my tools that I have and that I know I have, and I can come up with more solutions than the average bear because of the plethora of tools. Like, for example, earlier today I went and did a little quick installation for a friend of mine, and it was a very tight space, needed a right angle tool, but this thing happened to be too big. And unfortunately, this thing was just a little too awkward to get up into where I needed to go. So I sat there pondering to myself, and I've done this many times before because I've owned the attachments for doing this, but nifty little tool for carpenters to own. I'm going to give you this, is a couple little attachments like this and a cordless ratchet. Because for these really tight compact spaces, these have a smaller footprint than this does, because as you can see, it's quite a bit smaller and stout. And I actually like my extended reach for those really long tight spaces, but it's got a smaller footprint again. But this thing works great for doing cabinet screws. Really great. Anything over an inch and a half, it kind of putters out. It's not the strongest thing in the world, but it does the little screws just fine. That's a little bit noisy, but when you got a situation where you need to have a specialty tool to get into somewhere, sometimes being able to think out of the box and utilize what you have works great. Oh, right. Well, there may not be the quietest thing, but well, you're supposed to be wearing ear protection when you're doing things anyways. But when you got a situation and you're in a tight spot, being able to have tools that allow you to think out of the box to get the job done comes in handy. But I actually think most carpenters should own at least a 1/4 inch one of these, and a couple little chuck adapters, just in case you run into these tight spaces where the tools that were meant for that job don't fit and work. Are they the most powerless thing? Are they the optimal solution? Are they not really, but they work, they get the job done, and they get it done right. But there's a little bit of hopefully someone watches this and goes, hey, that's interesting, I could have used that. That would have been quite handy on something I was doing. But it's always good to own tools outside of your trade, for the just in case. So if you ever see a sale on a tool that you're like, well, that's for mechanic work, but stop and think about it and go, what can I use that for my woodworking or carpentry things? The same with automotive stuff. Look at carpentry tools and go, what could I use that for in my industry? So, and it's like, there's no such thing as too many tools in my opinion. But when you have a broader selection of tools and more options, sometimes you can get the job done faster and easier than sitting there trying to monkey around and create a solution.